so I'm going to self-moderate. My name's Robert Stewart. I've been around the division for forever. I've been everywhere. Here's the roles. Try to pass them out. This is a non-CEU session, so we'll give you that ability to leave now. So says the paper. I don't know how they determine CEUs versus non-CEUs. Does it? Well, this is lies then, nothing but lies. That's good. So I'm Robert Stewart. This is Kurt McQuistion. Kurt's the quality guy. Kurt's a PE. He's a certified manager of quality and organizational excellence. He's also a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. For those people that didn't get a chance to see our video, we're going to play that for you to begin with as we let people trickle in. So we'll just start with that.
Hi, I'm Ryan Feldman. I'm an expert in the field of quality management. What makes me an expert? That title right there. Now, when people hear the phrase quality management, a lot of different things come to mind.
Quality?
Okay, so it's not exactly the most scintillating topic on the planet, but then again, neither is sewage treatment, yet they're both extremely important. Why? Well, it's hard to say exactly. All I know for sure is that when a quality management system is in place, you get this. And when a quality management system is not in place, you get this. So today we're going to take a look at the specific quality management system principles employed by UDOT. These are policies that serve as a high-level roadmap for UDOT in the continual process of improving quality. Yep, over the course of the next 3 hours, you're going to learn how to... 3 hours? Why does the teleprompter say 3 hours? There's no way I'm doing this for 3 hours. What? It's in my contract? Well, we are going to renegotiate my contract. Sorry I had to witness that, but I did it for you, for all of us. See, quality management doesn't have to be lengthy and boring. In fact, we're going to strip UDOT's quality management system down to 20 principles. Now, what the heck? Let's just make it 8 principles and get it over with. Number 1, customer focus.
UDOT is committed to the satisfaction of its customers, both internal and external. The quality management system is made up of important processes, which include documentation of customer requirements, effective customer communication practices, and customer feedback. These processes help us identify and understand current and future needs of customers, meet their requirements, and exceed their expectations.
In other words, superior customer service is really, really important here at UDOT. It's probably why it's first on the list. Number 2, leadership.
Top management is committed to the establishment and implementation of the quality management system. Management establishes unity of purpose and direction of UDOT by establishing and communicating a strategic direction and quality emphasis area to all employees and assuring that quality objectives have been established in all areas to support the strategic direction.
Translation, the people who run this outfit know what they're doing, mostly. And doggone it, they're committed to quality. Number 3, involvement of people.
The employees of UDOT are the heart and soul of this organization. The quality management system supports their full involvement in identifying quality objectives, establishing appropriate responsibilities and authorities, and determining minimum competencies for all personnel. UDOT demonstrates a firm commitment to full involvement of its employees by establishing strong employee development programs that help them reach their full potential.
That's just a long-winded way of saying that you guys, the employees, are the key ingredient to making quality management work. Number 4, process approach.
UDOT manages work activities by using a process approach. Where necessary, these processes are documented to ensure adequate knowledge management and efficient operation so that these activities can be performed for predictable outcomes and targets can be identified to improve performance. Distribution and revisions of these processes are controlled to ensure employees always have quick access to the current version.
Without a process, you get chaos. Remember this? Yeah, That's what you get when you don't approach work with a process. Number 5, system approach to management.
UDOT manages all interrelated work activities and processes as a system. Improvements to individual activities, processes, or areas are not undertaken without a determination of the potential impact to the entire system. Management works together to ensure that major changes to the organization do not threaten the ability of the department to effectively complete its mission.
Here at UDOT, we look at the whole system before making big changes. What solves one problem might create a bigger problem somewhere else. It's like why you don't take Viagra if you have a heart problem. Right, Phil? Number 6, continual improvement.
Continual improvement of the department's products, processes, and services is one of UDOT's primary objectives. Management continually demonstrates their commitment to the achievement of this objective by analyzing results and tracking quality objectives to determine the need for corrective or preventive action.
Look, we're always looking for better ways to do things. In a word, duh. Number 7, factual approach to decision making.
Management strives to make decisions based on the analysis of data and information by reviewing product, process, and service measurements during management reviews. To support this principle, measurements of effectiveness and delivery have been established at appropriate levels.
I don't know how other states do it, but here at UDOT, we make decisions based on good old-fashioned facts and figures, and that's a fact. And now for our last principle, number 8, mutually beneficial supplier partnerships.
UDOT and its many contractors, consultants, and suppliers are interdependent, and a mutually beneficial partnership enhances the ability of each to create value. The department supports this important principle with effective practices for communicating with these industries in relation to current customer expectations.
Frankly, I'm not sure what this one's saying. Maybe we should consider getting rid of it? No? We need to keep it? Wow.
Hey, we rely on a lot of different people at UDOT, and we want to make sure they share our commitment to quality. Dude.
Yeah, nice job, thanks. Well, there you have it. The 8 principles of UDOT's quality management system. Again, think of these policies as a high-level roadmap for UDOT in the continual process of improving quality. The management has asked me to tell you that starting immediately, each and every employee will be required to memorize these principles word for word, and that bonuses and promotions will hereafter be exclusively based on your ability to recite them upon request. I'm just kidding. We'd never do that. Instead, we just ask that you keep a copy of these principles close by and look at them from time to time. You never know when they might come in handy. Now, I know what you're thinking.
When will this video be over?
Can I get my money back?
What can I, as a UDOT employee, do each and every day on each and every job to employ these 8 principles and continuously improve quality in a systematic way?
That's an excellent question, sir. Improving quality is not just a one-time thing. It's a continual process, a cycle, if you will. And here at UDOT, this cycle, known as the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, is employed by everyone who works here. It's a very scientific and effective sequence that we're going to demonstrate with an oversimplified cooking analogy.
That sounds like a great plan.
Number 1, plan. Let's say you're a chef. You need a detailed plan on how you're going to meet the needs of the customer. What's the most important thing to consider? Speed, taste, price. The variables are endless, but think it through and then cook up your plan. Second action in the cycle is do. In other words, you put your plan into action. In this analogy, you've decided that small dishes served in a minimalist environment with horrible lighting was part of your plan. Thus, you've prepared the dish and are now serving your customers accordingly. That was the do phase. Now it's time for the check phase, where you check your data. Back in the plan phase, you'll have decided what data is important to collect, who will collect the data, what criteria will be used to judge success or failure, etc. But now you're checking the data to see how well your plan is working. In this case, it seems like the data is saying there's significant room for improvement, which brings us to the last phase in the cycle, act. Once you've looked at the data and analyzed it, it's time to decide what adjustments need to be made. Then the cycle starts all over by trying again with an improved plan. Plan, do, check, act. It's science, and it works. Again, this is an oversimplified analogy. In the real world, the plan, do, check, act cycle can be quite complex in the number of variables for consideration in each step. So much so that we've had a Nobel Prize-winning mathematician working around the clock to develop a comprehensive formula to express the plan, do, check, act cycle mathematically. But if science has taught us one thing, it's that people tend to remember stuff that's super simple. If If you want the official and more detailed UDOT version of Plan, Do, Check, Act, visit this website. There's a lot of great information there that'll help you do your job better each and every day. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Hope it wasn't too boring. And remember, while quality means doing the best possible job, it doesn't mean perfection. You can't let perfection get in the way of getting a job done. Have a great week.
All right, so that was a lot of fun. Why am I playing a quality video at a change order presentation? So Kurt and I are the mighty force of two of the Quality Management Division. The Quality Management Division was started up a couple of years ago as a result of the quality emphasis area that leadership put out there. Really, I think part of the purpose of establishing a quality management area is to try to balance speed versus quality, right? I think that leadership heard that over and over. We need to somehow balance speed with quality emphasis, and so this division was created. So the 8 principles that were just talked about there, the one that we're trying to focus on today is a factual approach to decision making. I've been to presentations, and I think John Thomas has been going around talking about the Decision Lens tool. That's really a tool to gather intuition together. We're talking about the emphasis that we've got right now is basing decisions on fact. And fact and intuition both play a critical role in decision making, but from a quality perspective, we like to rely on actual evidence before we start making decisions. So this is a look at the project delivery system as a whole. Really, it's UDOT's whole system with project delivery broken out. We've got. I wish I had a pointer, but I'll just do this. So, concept to operation. That's kind of what I define as project delivery. We've got design in here, construction in here, and everything below this line really represents the quality records that come out of these two processes. So in the design realm, we have quality control efforts that happen. We do review comments at milestone meetings. There's QC/QA type of things that happen at the end. We have an advertising checklist. At advertisement, we have BVI, and BVI is kind of this loose record of the quality of the design. It's got a lot of other factors wrapped into it, and there's not a lot there. Addenda also represent things that have changed. Those are actually quality records as far as we're concerned. Then we get into the construction realm, and we have inspection records and testing records, various punch lists and change orders we've got down here, right? These are things that, and I want to make sure that I'm clear about saying this because I tend to get this message confused to people, is we don't consider change orders to be bad in every scenario, right? I've heard presentations given at this conference that talk about taking risk, putting it aside with contingency placed on that risk in anticipation of if it happens in construction that we'll issue a change order. That's good project management, right? So when we talk about change orders, I want to make sure that I get that out of the way. First thing is I don't consider all changes to be bad. We recognize that change orders are a viable project management strategy. Actually, the fact that we have a change order process infers that we anticipate having change orders in construction, so it's a planned thing, right? So when I first took over this job in quality, my first question to Carlos was, okay, where do you want me? Okay, we got this quality thing, where should we emphasize? And he's, I don't know, fix quality, right? Improve quality. So we went around and we talked to a lot of different people about quality, and a lot of the things we got back from people were that aggressive design schedules were negatively influencing the quality of the design. We also heard that price plus time was negatively influencing the quality of construction. And so we say, great, show me, right? Where are the facts with that? So in the construction realm, and really in our project delivery system, we are very, very good and diligent about what I call detect and correct, right? We detect an error, we fix it. We detect a bad test, we get it fixed, right? And we do this on a project-by-project basis, and all of that information goes into a box, even though it's a digital box now. It goes into a box and it's stored, and we never really pull that out. So we have confidence that we have quality on a project, but we can't really analyze it from a system. And so when we were trying to analyze, okay, is price plus time negatively influencing the quality of our construction, it's really difficult to assess that. So we started focusing on design, and we said, can we do anything similar in the design realm? And we've got this change orders sitting here, right? And change orders can represent the quality of the design, right? And through the PDBS system, somebody's actually already thought of this from a systematic level, and there's a drop-down menu you can have when you do a change order, and you can attribute that change order to an originator, right? So somebody's already thought we should try to analyze these things from a higher level, so we thought, oh, let's start there. Now, generally when I start talking about this, I get people rolling their eyes and they go, yeah, you can't use that data, right? You can't use that PDBS data. And the issue with it is really that within PDBS, you may have a change order that has multiple issues or multiple changes within a single change order, but it only allows you to attribute the entire change order to one particular originator, right? So with that in mind, we said, okay, we don't trust necessarily the assignment of those, the information's in PDBS, but can we get to the change orders and analyze them ourselves? And with that, I'll turn it over to Kurt to talk about.
So we went to the oldest source of data that we had, and we wanted to get some more, but that's the only thing that we could get at readily, so we started looking through it a little bit. We decided to download the last 3 years of data. We pulled about 1,600 data points, and we took the first 100 and the last 100. Robert did 100 on the first, I did the last 100. We started looking through things and trying to apply some of the quality tools that we've been taught to sift what we could from the data. The first thing we noticed is a lot of them were attributed incorrectly. According to what we read in the change order, we figured it would probably be better suited put into a different box. So we started trying to determine which bins we would put this data into to try and make sense of it. Now, when I turn the graphs over, if you're sitting with an engineer, you've just lost them for the next half an hour or so, because there's going to be graphs and data up here, and it's going to get really sexy in here for those guys. So try and maintain composure. So we came up with some bins, and using quality data tools called affinity diagrams, we put all of the different causes we saw in these first 200 and started arranging them on a whiteboard. You may have walked by and seen all the Post-it notes all over the place, but we finally settled on these bins you see up here, just because they seemed to make the most sense to us, and what we were trying to determine was likely causes. You can see that over 55% of the data in our Pareto analysis, using the 80-20 rule, is on conflicts in the contract documents. So at first we called that design errors, and that's really unfair. There's a lot of things that could be considered a design error that really aren't errors at all. So we decided that conflicts in the contract documents was a better category to use. Miscellaneous covered things from different specifications that needed to be changed during a contract, like Buy America or maybe a new asphalt spec. Things that didn't really fit anyplace else. It's usually the miscellaneous drawer is usually full, so that's a pretty obvious second. Differing site conditions being a close third. Now, in differing site conditions, we put two types of errors or conflicts in there. One is just to go out there and there's just bad soil. You've got some soup in there, you dig it around and you find it. The other ones are structures, and they should have been maybe documented in an as-built or something like that, but there were items that were found underground that we probably had a better chance of knowing about. So the top three, you can see if we concentrate in these areas, and using a Pareto analysis is a good way to figure out where you best spend your time, where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck, is taking over 86% in those first three. So we decided to concentrate on the very first one, conflicts in the contract documents. Now, before we got too far along, we wanted to say, well, what does this data really mean? If we're going to focus on conflicts or any of this data at all, are we sure we understand what's going on? And Mark Twain said there are liars, there are damn liars, and then there's statistics. So we want to start comparing things in different ways to some different variables. We took that same data, and this graph needs a little bit of an explanation. We tried a lot of different types of graphs. This one gave us the best overall view of what we were looking at. So we heard things like, well, are UDOT design projects more prone to design errors or conflicts than consultant ones are large projects compared to small projects more error prone. So we started to take a look at these things. You can see it's broken up into columns. I tried to draw some lines in there, vertical blue lines. We checked consultant data versus UDOT data. And you can see that what we thought might be occurring really isn't. They're very close. You can see the top line is overall conflicts, and they're pretty in line with each other. We said, well, maybe large projects over $5 million. You know, there's a lot of money there. Maybe they're more complex. Or maybe small projects, because there's not a lot of money there. You have to really kick them out fast. We took a look there, and kind of what you would expect to see. A little bit lower in under 5 million projects, probably because it's a little less complex. There's a little bit less to do there. We checked the local government versus UDOT, and then we looked at the three methods of delivery: design, bid, build, and CMGC. And the things that you look at and you go, oh, well, duh. Those are points where the data matched what you expected to see. Your hunches, your premonitions, like Robert was saying, the things that you feel are going on, where are the quality problems, where we think it's here. When the data supports that, you go, well, duh. When the data doesn't support that, that's where quality guys get really excited. You can see here we had some spikes, and we're going, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? We also looked at the regions 1 through 4, and kind of broke it up that way. So we looked at this stuff and we said, well, if these spikes are interesting to me, why would we have a spike up in different site conditions? Why would this region or that region have a higher point here and there? And we started to think, well, we're doing this by dollars. So if we were to change this around and look at the number of change orders instead of the dollar amount of change orders, everything becomes much more well-behaved. So we said, okay, let's look at this. It looks like the clear winner is still going to be conflicts in the contract documents. So that's probably where we should spend the majority of our time. Anything to add? Okay. So we took that up, and we did again the affinity diagram. We started looking at all those change orders that fell into that area and started slicing them up and putting them in different places. And we came up with a lot of different categories, but what we really settled on was we looked at the PDN. We said, well, who in the PDN, which team had the most chance of detecting and correcting that conflict? We come up with the categories here, and we said, well, you know, roadway is a clear winner. We designed roadway plans. If we were building satellites, that might have surprised us, but we expected to see roadway as the #1 topic. The thing that was kind of interesting is that now we've got traffic and safety. We've got drainage and the ATMS. Now, traffic and safety, ATMS, relatively low money-wise compared, but ranking in the top 4 of categorical problems areas to look at. Again, we wanted to make sure that we understood what the data was saying. So we did the same analysis again. Again, this is with dollars. You can see a lot of jumping around. There's a lot more noise in this data because we're dealing with a smaller data set. So applying quality tools, trying to figure out what the data was telling us and make sure we weren't running down a rabbit hole that was going to lead nowhere. We can see that some things jumped up and some things jumped down. And everybody's looking at this, and you're all drawing conclusions and stuff, and it makes me wonder, this data's been in the system for years, and we've not done this yet because we haven't really had the ability to do it, to pull it out and look at it. And that's where the power of data comes from, and the ability to make fact-based decisions. We're no longer dealing with intuitions or hunches, we're dealing with numbers. So the noise in the data, if you take it out and put it back to data points, become much more well-behaved. And we see that the clear winner up on top is still roadway, right? We still got some stuff in there. There's other things that are bouncing up and down depending on what you're looking at. But it's obvious that roadway is there, and that's the one we should concentrate on, probably get the most benefit from applying our limited time there. Anything else? Okay, so we want to look at conflicts in the contract documents, look at it different ways, start pulling the data apart, and we see here percent by dollars. Most things seem to be trending down, but there is an interesting little data point up there. What does that mean? What do we start looking at? Well, in 2014, Region 1 had a spike in conflicts. This is by dollar, and we thought, well, there was actually a large project going on in Region 1 at the time. A very small percentage of change orders on a project of that size could contribute to a very large spike in the dollar amount. So we were able to dismiss that. But the overall trend is obvious. We're looking at a good trend downward. Now, 2015, the data isn't all completely in because there's still change orders being processed, so we've probably got either a leveling out or maybe a slight dip in that area, but we could monitor that over time. But we still see a positive downward trend. Miscellaneous by dollars. When we start pulling the data out and looking at it different ways, things start to emerge and jump out at you. Well, we look here, we've got a spike in miscellaneous change orders. Now, if you look at the scale, it's a really relatively small, 0.5% or so, but still it could be something to look into. And by looking at these things, you can start to understand what's going on and make decisions based on facts. Different site conditions again, some data points that are going up and down, and I'll just run through these a little bit quicker, but we've got generally a trend in the downward direction. If we look at percent changes by dollars, obvious that we're trending right. Now, we didn't pull any data beyond 2012, but wouldn't it be interesting if we would have, and if we had that data available, we could see maybe gradual trends? Did we have a spike up in 2012? What decision was made in 2012 that caused this to occur? We really don't know because we can't look back. But if we continue this analysis and watch for trends in the future, whatever decisions we make, we can actually see what it did with our data. We can say, was that a good decision? Was that a bad decision? Doing okay? Different site conditions, still general trend, definitely in the downward area. Is there one more? Miscellaneous, all downward. Now, what we can do is look backwards with statistics. We can look in the reverse and say, okay, these things happened. Here's maybe why they happened. That's interesting. That's peculiar. We can look more into that. We also can flip the scale the other way. We can take historical data and start making predictions in the future. We know, for example, that we're doing really well as a DOT. Comparatively, we have about 3-4% in change orders by dollar amounts. That's phenomenal by industry standards. I think that's really good. So we're doing good things. What decisions have been made that have caused those good things to happen? We're not exactly sure on that. Can we replicate those in other areas? Is one region doing something really fantastic we could replicate somewhere else? We really don't know that. But with collecting data and going through it, we can start to see that and start to apply the good things all over and maybe get away with the bad things. We understand that maybe 2/3 of every project is going to have a change order. Now, change orders, like Robert said, are not always bad. A lot of times you could argue that that's work that had to be done anyway. We just got it on the other side of the contract. It had to be put in the field, so what's the big harm? We're only at 3% anyway, so overall, budget-wise, not a huge impact. Should we really look into it more? Well, we said, well, change orders contain more than just the add to the contract. They start to make maybe designers or contractors feel if there's a lot of change orders in a project, they start going, gosh, what's wrong here? Is something wrong? Was it a bad design? Was there something else happening? Somebody has to detect the change or detect the anomaly. They have to decide what to do about it. Then they have to adjust the contract. And here's where the money starts to come in. As you can see that over the last 3 years for roadways, we had to add almost 2 years worth of design time. So if you factor time in and effort in, then change orders is definitely a place we should start putting our efforts into. Anything to add?
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to just mention on some of these graphs, right, is these trends that we're seeing. These are all really positive trends, right? So when I go around and I talk to people and they say aggressive schedules are negatively influencing the quality of design, what I say is not by the metrics that I'm using, right? So there's one of 4 things that can happen here, or that's happened. Number one, we've got used to accelerated schedules, right? Our processes and our quality is caught up to the accelerated schedules. Number 2 is this is just the wrong metric, right? I know that I've never made a mistake, but perhaps this is the wrong metric to determine the quality of design. Number 3 would be that the schedules have actually regressed back to normal. I don't know that I've talked with anybody in UDOT that would feel that we've gone backwards on schedule, on a push of schedule, right? I'm failing number 4.
Number 4 is that the assumptions are wrong.
Oh, yeah. Number 4, it would be just that the assumption that aggressive schedules are negative of influencing the quality of design is just really an invalid assumption. I don't know exactly which one of those four it is, but I think one of the important points that we're trying to drive home here is that once we start analyzing data, we can start to verify whether or not our intuition is correct. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, the trend's good, variation's gone down. We're really in a positive spot. I hope that our presentation never gives off this persona that we're not doing good in change orders, because really with the 3 or 4% change order rate, we really are leading the country in that change order percentage.
Well, we want to talk about utilities joining the party. Utilities come in.
All right, so what, right? So what did we learn? So Kurt and I read literally 1,600 change orders. We were able to, out of those 1,600 change orders, arrive to about 2,000 changes within our construction contracts. So some of the things that I think we saw, like Kurt had shown, conflicts in contract documents, number 1, right? That's not unexpected. We would have anticipated that bin to have been the best. And really, it's no surprise that roadway kind of leads the group on that. Roadway, a lot of the changes we saw on roadway were grading issues, right? We do things by planned quantity. You blow the quantity on a planned quantity and a change order gets issued. Driveway aprons, things like that, right? One of the things that I think was the biggest takeaway, and whenever I talk to people about this, I get a shaking of the head, but site visits are critical. From the change orders that we saw, site visits could have prevented a ton of those change orders. Part of that site, so for the project managers in the room, I want to say, if you don't want your designer to go out and do a site visit, that's fine, right? There's different reasons why a designer wouldn't go out there, but have somebody go out and do a site visit. You know, if you want the construction crew to go out and do a site visit and compare the PS&E to the field, do it. There was so many changes that there was one particular change, and I hope nobody was involved in this, and I don't mean to poke fun, but we were going to put a push button on a signal pole, and the change order was that, well, when we got out to the field, the pole was actually wooden and not steel, and we had to issue a change order for that, right? I mean, a Google drive-through of the project would have prevented that change order from occurring. So go out, site visits are critically important, pop a couple of the lids, the things that you can see, right? To be able to verify some of the things that are hidden under the ground. If you can do it, go out there and at least do that to validate that the design meets the field. Like I said before, the effort in the grading quantities, we saw a lot of grading quantity type of change orders, and really you only issue a change order for that if the quantity is blown by 25% or more, right? So we're having significant busts within our grading. And you know, these are just recommendations. I get that sometimes the effort outweighs the benefit. These are just recommendations to prevent. Another thing that kind of jumped out at us, and I don't think that this is necessarily intuitive, is that a lot of the DBE work on projects is done on ancillary kinds of work, right? You know, ped ramps, raising manholes, those sorts of things. And I don't know if designers are intentionally doing this or not, but it almost seems as though we're overestimating those quantities. So whenever we do a federally funded project, we have a DBE commitment on that project. If we reduce the quantity on any of those committed items, a change order is necessary. And I think that we've gotten a little bit more common sense in this realm, but it really was like 4 feet less sidewalk required a change order, right? So I think the message that I'd like to convey to people is when estimating those types of quantities, it's probably better to err on the side of being too low than too high. If it's too low and the DBE gets more work, everybody's happy. It's when they have to do less work that the change order or a change order is necessary. Kurt mentioned differing site conditions, right? There's two different types of differing site conditions. One is dirt, one is features, right? The dirt stuff, it's tough to be able to understand better. Everybody knows a hole can change, the conditions can change within 4 feet of a hole. We can, however, perhaps capture when soft spots were encountered and relay that to the next designer, right? So that they understand that there's a high likelihood of soft spots in the area. The other thing is just as-built, right? Those things that are hidden under the ground, it's very, very important to get those things captured on the as-built. On the differing site conditions, out of the half that were hidden features, I would say probably 80% of those were like buried foundation type stuff, right? These were conscious decisions by somebody in the past to cut it off, leave it in the ground, which is a great decision, but it's not captured anywhere, right? And so capturing those things on the as-built is critically important. So those are some of the observations. So where do we go from here, really, as a DOT? We believe in the quality arena that monitoring the change order system is important, and we're trying to work with Central Construction and Central Pre-Construction on who should be monitoring these change orders, right? We went through and we spent a good amount of time in going through and reading these things, and it was fun, and I recommend that for everybody. It was really, I had to do it in like chunks, right? Because I just get mad, right? As I'm reading these change orders, I'd be, what are you doing? So it's important to monitor this, to establish baselines, right? So like Kurt was saying, we started in 2012, we got this great change, or this great trend. Why? What happened? What happened back whenever it happened that established this trend? If we're not monitoring and establishing baselines and doing trend analysis, we won't know whether or not the trends, there even is a trend. We won't know if a decision resulted in an increase in quality or a decrease in quantity. Does that make sense? The second thing is like Kurt was mentioning, we changed the category from design errors to conflicts and contract documents because we recognize that it can be designed correctly and still go out into the field and it's changed, right? It's analogous, it's the analogy that's up there is, a chef sends out a steak and the customer puts ketchup on it, right? What are you doing? You can't put ketchup on my steak. That feedback between the customer and the designer is critically important, right? It's the customers of design prints are contractors and the RE crews. Getting that interaction between them to understand what has been changed and why it changed is important. Because if you're sending out a steak and the customer's always putting ketchup on it, maybe your steak isn't all that good, right? And it's good lessons to learn.
Thanks. So like Robert was saying, we've got to, excuse me, we've got to listen to our customer. If you look at documents or like a plan set, something that's going sent out, it's really the vehicle we've chosen to convey something that happened in planning, a project that we need to have built, to the contractor to take it out in the field and construct that. So we should have a feedback loop like we do here with our little quality video in the Plan, Do, Check, Act, is that we talk to our customers, whoever they are. It may be the next process, it may be the contractor, but understand what parts of your process they didn't really get. Is it helpful to them? Is it what they need? And start doing that Plan, Do, Check, Act feedback loop. And then we want to have a way to get to the root of the problem. So as a quality division, Robert and I are offering services up because, we've got extra time, right? I don't know if you have, yeah, okay. So we perform a root cause analysis on a lot of things. So we did one out it was on 193, and there was an inordinate amount of change orders for handicap ramps. So we went through and did a real quick root cause analysis, which is basically just acting like a child and saying why. And at first why, you'll get a superficial answer. If you ask why about 5 times, you're going to start to get down through a fault tree and find out what actually caused that. According to our root cause analysis for those handicap ramps that were 4 times or 10 times what they were supposed to be, it was that they'd actually called up the complex, called GIS, and just got a number, and hadn't field verified it. So we said, okay, how can we stop that from happening again? We had a disclaimer put on the data on the GIS website saying this is for planning purposes only and you should always field verify. Will that stop it? I don't know, but at least this gives us a decent chance. So if you're out there and you have projects in the field, you might want to make sure, once again, like Robert said, that site visit is utmost importance. So we've got this decision chart. You can find it on our website, but it's a way for you to go through and say, you know, do we want to involve Robert or Kurt and get some extra help on things? We've been trained in root cause analysis. We have a lot of quality tools that can help you out. But you go through there and basically look, is it a recurring problem? Was it a really high cost problem? Did we break some kind of a law or a statute? Can I fix the problem? And if I fix the problem, will it cause a problem somewhere else? A lot like our Viagra comment. So you can go through there, and if you feel like you get over to we gotta have a root cause analysis done, then feel free to give Robert and I a call, and we can come over and help you out, sit down with you, look at things, and try and find out the best way to take care of stuff. So.
Yeah, so one of the other things that I think that we're working towards is there's this analogy that project managers are maestros, right? Maestros of an orchestra. And one of the things that I think that we've noticed within our system is that we don't have great responsibilities handed out at these plan in hand and PS&E type of reviews. So as a district engineer, the brief time I was a district engineer, I got handed plan sets frequently. And I go, great, that's perfect. What do you want me to look at? Well, look at it, right? I mean, look at constructability. You know, and what I should have said to the PM is, I'm not the person to talk to about constructability, right? I don't have competence in anything. In the PDN, we have just plan set distribution lists, right? And these plan sets are going out to different people. And I think what we're looking, and we're working with Jim Golden on, is trying to emphasize to project managers that it may be in the best interest of the project to not just hand it out, but actually discuss with the person what you need them to review. On the ADA ramps, perhaps if the PM would have said, hey, Donna, I need you to look at ADA ramps. Don't focus on spelling errors and leader lines stuff. I need you to focus on ADA ramps. Perhaps that wouldn't have fallen through the cracks. Similarly, I think that it's incumbent on the project managers to look at the competency of the person that they're handing the plan set to. And I don't mean that somebody doesn't have the ability to be competent in a certain area, but say you're a new district engineer and you're going to hand somebody that plan set, right? Say do a constructability review. That's probably not the best thing. You probably want to say, hey, Robert, you don't really know what you're doing with constructability just yet. I'm going to bring in somebody that does, review it together, and help build that competency together. Does that make sense to everybody? I think that definition helps prevent holes in the review. If you hand something to somebody and say, review this and review everything, the chances are is the review that you're going to get is the most simplest and the most shallow, if that makes sense. The last thing to just discuss is, like I said before, in our project delivery system, we are great at detection and correction, right? On projects, we find errors and we fix them. That's something that I have confidence that we do. But there's a ton of this information that exists. With minimal effort, we can gather this information rather than just filing it away into a project file somewhere so that we can learn from it. Anything else?
Well, maybe just look at your own processes and find out which metrics you have access to inside that warehouse and say, how do I know I'm doing the job right? And go through there and start monitoring those, gather some data, start looking for trends. If you make a decision, if you make a change to something, if a new person comes in, expect to see something happening on that data trend, and that's how you can really know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, or if some of your guys might need a little extra training. Also, we had another one on here. Designers really should be involved in the change order loop. They should be able to look at those, understand what they did, and what the contractor didn't understand. It may be a simple adjustment, and it could be something that not only that designer has, but all designers are struggling with. And if we're able to put that feedback loop back in place, you can cut out a lot of those change orders, and then you can move on to your next highest item. So.
Okay, questions?
With your analysis, did you look back in 2012 and see millions of dollars spent for basically first floor analysis, recording, real-time recording against the projects?
So
So they spent millions of dollars to see what was going on real time against any of those projects around 2012. Did you include that in the analysis?
I'm not certain of the study that you're talking about.
Lots of reports, all sorts of things went to senior management that were in real time tracking the projects at that time.
So our analysis didn't consider that specifically, and the reason for that is that if I know the study that you're talking about, it relied on the metrics that were within the PDBS system, that tagging of change orders by the attributes that were already in PDBS.
Yes, and EPM did a whole bunch of things too, all sorts of dashboards put together, and lots of real-time reporting is available to upper management at that time.
Yeah, so we didn't review that or consider that, but what I'll say is that this whole problem of being able to trust the data, I mean that's what I would term it as, is there's not a high level of trust in the data in PDBS because of that singular reason that multiple issues can be rolled up into a single change order. That we're working with Josh Van Jura in the Masterworks environment to be able to track individual changes by each change. And that's not to say that we're looking at making sure that everybody creates a change order for each individual issue, because we recognize the efficiency of being able to roll up a whole bunch of items into a single change order. It's just being able to attribute each of those individual changes individually.
So this is a good discussion, but I do have to question, so this whole discussion's been on that quality is tied to the number of change orders. I've had some really good projects that were very high quality, that had a lot of change orders. I have some ones that are downright awful and didn't have any change orders. And so I don't know that that's really a good correlation.
Yeah, so this is good. I think that the perception for a lot of people is that change orders represents the quality of construction, right? Because they're issued in construction. The people that are attributing the change orders are in construction, and it's really a metric that's used within the construction realm. And I think what we're suggesting, and again, with the caveat earlier, right? I support change orders that are used for project management purposes, meaning a couple of things, right? One, you could just say as a project manager, I'm not going to put a huge amount of effort into design here, and we're just going to deal with it in construction. Mm-hmm. That's a balance. That's a cost trade-off thing, and that's wise project management. And I'm also suggesting that project management using change orders as a tool to mitigate risk is a positive thing. Not all change orders are bad. And I don't think that the number of change orders represents anything to do with construction. We're suggesting that change orders can reflect the quality of the design.
Oh, so we're talking only quality of design, because when I think on the construction side, you're talking quality of a project. I'm thinking, is the contractor paving when the weather's bad, and he really is risking it, he shouldn't be.
Gotcha. Sorry. In the construction realm, we've got a lot more work to do here, because honestly, we don't even have the processes in place to be able to gather the data, right? Without digging really, really deep. I think that, up until recently, the C-106, for everybody that knows what a C-106 is, it's reject material allowed to remain in place. Those things were on a piece of paper filed in project files, right? That would have been great data to have to say that the price plus time has negatively influenced construction quality, right? To say, well, are we leaving more reject material in place? So we're working with construction in order to build those metrics up for the construction system.
As one that writes those change orders, when you attribute it, we really have no direction. We're going to be attributing either by the first item that we got, or the highest dollar item we got, or some other way. And when you say they're attributed wrong, I have a hard time with that, because we attribute sometimes on just one item that's on a 10-item change order, or the biggest dollar item, or the one that's easiest to explain.
I think that's a great comment. To take that a little bit further, I question why the construction division is attributing those at all, right? In my mind, and one of the things I've talked with the program managers and pre-construction engineers on is, should those things be attributed by the designer, by a project manager, by somebody neutral, right? Because, I mean, to be frank, why does construction care where to attribute it? Right? The lesson to be learned is happening somewhere upstream for a lot of those change orders, if that makes sense. Other questions, comments?
How can the designers get the change order list for every project that they're working on? Are we, other than, I mean, sometimes we're involved in the construction, we're going to the meetings, and then there's a lot of smaller projects that we work on, me as a designer, that we're not even involved in that because we don't, it's not part of our contract, we're not really involved. And so we're not getting the feedback.
Right, so George Lukes is working towards that. I think that conceptually he's got it that we should be reviewing change orders at post-con meetings, and we need to make sure the designers are there for post-construction meetings. I guess my input to him has always been, it feels like it should be a separate meeting, or even better, to get designers reviewing change orders as they're being developed. Not approving change orders. I don't want to freak construction people out in the room. Reviewing the change orders as they go. Because, again, I think that it's an important discussion to know whether or not somebody's dumping ketchup on your steak, right?
Region 4 holds that meeting. Region 4
Oh,
holds
so,
that
yeah, sorry, I should say that. There are a couple of regions that have what's called a resident engineer project manager meeting, and they will review change orders in that meeting, but not necessarily with the designer in the room. Marwan?
I'm kind of curious as far as your graph, when you start from 2012. Isn't that's when we started the P plus B, or was that the year before, about like 4 or 5 years ago?
Why don't you do that?
And now it's starting to trend?
I try not to publicize that I was the one that ran that damn policy through. I try not to be but that was back in 2009.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we didn't have any data back then to kind of see them, what we're going to see the graphs are.
We missed a lot of,
Or hiding data.
we missed a lot of data, right? I mean, between 2009 and 2012, we had the CORE project, we had all the Access Utah County projects, all the ARA fund projects. We did miss a lot, right? It wasn't strategic to go 2012, it was just 1,600 change orders, right? That reading got a little bit interesting.
It's 2,000 change orders.
Being somebody who went straight from design to construction and now writing change orders, I know I rarely write a change order. I don't know that I ever have where I haven't involved the designer in the change order. Contacted them, told them what our line of thought is, told them what we're doing, asked them if that was discussed in pre-construction, is there something we're missing, kind of got their feedback. The one issue I really had is I have that correlation a lot more with the designers that I know well.
part of the plan set. I mean, that spec book should have some way, our designers are always wanting feedback. I've heard from designers, I wanted feedback, but yet there's a lot of these plan sets that go out to people, and unless the designer was able to make some of the meetings and stuff, they don't even know who designed the project.
I think that's fair, and I think that, so, I don't know how long ago it was, but people they recognized this issue, specifically with consultant designers, because the contract for design was ended, right? And there was no really construction-related support put into the original design contract. And I think that goes in now, at least people have told me that that's in there now. So I think at least people have recognized it and are trying to deal with that issue. But yeah, I mean, it should be that the designer's saying the reason I did that is because of this. And then the construction guys go, yeah, well, that doesn't represent what's going on out there, or here's a better way of doing it, so we're gonna do that, right? I think that conversation is incredibly valuable.
You're talking about not seeing a trend with increased change orders on accelerated projects. And I think, I don't know if you touched on it, but I think in review there's been a lot more time spent on those reviews. So it probably gets more effort put into it.
So what I was saying is not just accelerated. I think all projects are accelerated, right? Or from my understanding, all like design windows are shrunk, right? We try to spread them out as much as possible, but most projects now are accelerated, right? So we looked at the entire population of projects, not just accelerated projects. Is our time up?
I think we'll warm out.
Okay, thanks for coming out, guys.